We're done. Season's over.
Ooh,
No more
man.
work. No more paychecks either. But
Yeah, that's the tough part. No more paychecks after this. This is our finally done. Although I'm waiting for my game. At least I get to catch one free game. I can just enjoy it as a fan. So I hope the Seahawks come out strong in this one.
yeah, I'm just glad I'm not freezing my ass off like you are up there. It seems like it's cold as shit. I mean, it's
Yeah,
sunny,
yeah,
so that means it's got to be cold.
right.
That's
And
how it is this
you
time
know,
of year.
it's what, about 5 o'clock, well, right before 5 Pacific. Because usually it's really nice and sunny up here.
Yeah, must be a little bit of a reflection, but
Yeah,
it was a good season. It's tough that they don't want us to do it
yeah,
all through the playoffs, but I get it. There's only so many people playing fantasy football. Seasons are
for
winding
sure.
down. I've got one matchup that's already done. I'm going to win, and one that
Wow.
I'm done and I lost. So 50-50.
Um,
What are you going to do? A
it
couple
was
of buys. So three teams
it was
left.
a brutal week for some top quarterbacks out there, man. Like if you have Tua Tagovailoa, who had been unbelievable for the last few weeks, he just goes out and lays an egg. You have Jameis Winston, who like doesn't finish the game and is just.
Yeah,
I think he
that's
may have
actually the game I
Eric.
win is with Jameis. But,
I
you
think
know,
you're one of few then.
if you had to start Will Levis, that was brutal. Negative
Yeah,
something or other, negative 4.5 in my league. Like, I don't know what that
that's
guy's doing,
crazy.
but
Yeah, even the Bo
Stroud and Kyler Murray
Nixons.
killed me in one league, super
Yeah.
flex. Like, can't count on 12 points to win you much. So
Yeah, it was some
hopefully it's a
brutal
six here.
playoff. Yeah, so I think that is the one thing that's killing everyone is that I got pretty lucky. Jane Daniels looked incredible coming back out from the bye week. They're like, all right, it's all yours, although they almost blew it at the end. But um, yeah, I mean, that's the thing about playoffs. It's like you never fucking know what happens, right?
Yeah, and
It
team,
could be the
a team
greatest game.
that just had a bunch of guys and Devonte Adams just went nuts. It's like,
Yeah, it's like what?
okay, I guess I
Yeah,
lost Devonte Adams in the playoffs. What are you gonna do? Like,
it's incredible. Yeah, I couldn't believe it, and I just, again, you just never know what's going to happen. And yeah, Devon, Mike Evans, Amon Ra, like those guys had been so wishy washy, up and down. Mike Evans was hurt a little bit, and then they come in the clutch. Now it's like, don't blow it all this week. I need you next week, so we'll see what happens.
save some in the tank. All right, I going up against a team that just went over 200 points. So I'm like, all right, get it all out now. Get it out. You know,
I'm curious, are the Bills the Super Bowl favorites after their performance against the Lions?
I don't know how you can be a Super Bowl favorite when you can't play D. Like,
They don't need to apparently.
yes, you outscore. The team that really scares me for the Bills is the Steelers. I
Yeah.
just, I think that there's just a chance that the Steelers defense is good enough to hold Josh Allen in check enough to keep him under that 30 points. And I think the
Sure.
Steelers offense might be enough to run up and down with the Bills D. So,
Yeah,
a
but
team
what about
like
the
that,
Eagles though? It's hard
the
to be
Eagles
like
definitely.
Steelers are
I,
gonna.
I mean, I think the Eagles would just destroy the Bills.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Wow.
like I just don't think I don't think that's a matchup that they can handle. I mean, for that matter, maybe even the Lions. Like the Eagles have the D. Like I don't know if
Yeah.
their offense. I think it's their offense that worries me more than their defense right
Yeah.
now. The Eagles, it's like if you could shut down Saquon, if you faced a team that had a corner good enough to match up with AJ Brown, and then is able to shut down the
Sure.
run, forced you to throw to the rest of those guys. I don't know if Javonte Smith on his own is going to beat a team in the playoffs. Like I don't know if he has
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
So
It's a fair point. There's some really great teams, but injuries have clearly hurt the Buffalo Bills on defense. But they're scoring at a crazy clip right now. Josh Allen starts the game with he's like, yeah, I remember that 60-point performance last week. Why don't I start with 2 rushing touchdowns into this game in the first quarter? It was crazy. It is crazy
yeah,
what Josh Allen's been doing for teams in fantasy.
well, because we've always seen that huge ceiling, but it's rare that he hits it on a really regular basis, but with a bad defense, all of a sudden he has to,
Yeah.
And so I don't know who they're playing next week. It could be another just shootout. So we'll see. I mean, as long as he's playing teams with good enough offenses, he's going to keep going off because nobody can stop him when he's running the ball. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you said, the Rams beat them, last week, and that was brutal. I mean, how do you lose when you score 40? They almost let this team come back. So we'll see. But that offense has been so impressive. I mean, they just churn out head coaches on that offensive coordinator role. And this guy, I think a little bit better than Dable at this point. He's just like Josh Allen, just go. It's crazy.
Joe Brady is there right now, right? I
Yeah.
think. Yeah. So, I mean, he does a good job with the running game. I mean, they were running it more, not as much these last few weeks, but it's going to be tough. I think the Bills just need a little bit more on defense. Maybe there's a couple of guys coming back, a couple of guys getting right. Maybe they get more aggressive and just start blitzing and trying to force turnovers because, if you're not going to stop somebody conventionally,
Sure.
why not like blitz left and right? You get some turnovers, either with sacks, get a sack or two and force a punt. And I don't think there's nothing to lose when you're the Bills defense because okay, you blitz them and they beat it
Right.
and they toast you down the field. Okay, give the ball back to Josh Allen.
Yeah, definitely. Are you worried for like your fantasy teams? Like you've snuck in, you had to play Jameis Winston. What's your game plan now if you have like a Jameis Winston or or
I've
a
got
Tua Tagovailoa?
Jameis or Russell Wilson, so it's like, I mean, I think really you just have to play the matchups.
Yeah,
You
agree.
gonna got to trust the matchups with those
Matchups
bottom
are
end
huge.
quarterbacks.
It's
Like they're
especially
just
teams that are playing teams that don't want to win, right? Like, or their defense is decimated or what have you. I mean, I picked Washington's defense up just for this week, and they should have had a better week, but you know, they still had a really good game plan against a really terrible, first time starter and Jake Hayner. So those type of things can save you because I had Detroit's defense on my bench. I was not going to play them against the Bills, and thank God I didn't. It would have been real brutal, -6 points. So even down to the defense, I agree. It's all about the matchups. Spend the fab money to get those matchups. Spend the money to get those cuffs. Like those are really important. And we're starting to see some players go down here and there. It's late in the season, and some might have to rest or some might get shut down. So it's really worth, putting in some fab money at this point.
yeah, spend it all, gear up for next season in Dynasty. Grab those guys off IR. Keep an eye on which players of yours on IR are going to have to come off or can stay on there. Don't need to carry defenses or kickers through the off
Sure.
season as well if you're knocked out. So, there's a lot of different things that can change it up. Redraft, it's kind of tough. You just kind of have to let it go. Maybe keep an eye on it, see which one of your friends win.
If
Um,
if you're a
could-
redraft guy, are you the type of guy who's in the consolation and like you'll just like pick up like the best player, like and like try to
I
spend all your money?
used I used to do that. That was something I would do, and now I'm kind of over it. It's like I've got so many
You're more
leagues that
mature.
it's just I'm more mature, or I just don't want to spend the time, or
Right,
I'm
right,
not
right.
spiteful or resentful,
Sure.
and I've also heard other people in the industry kind of frown upon it, which I think it's more or less a gray area. Like the players, I don't know. I think that because they have the constellation brackets, it's hard to say you can't pick players up if you
Sure.
want to play in the constellation bracket, especially for people who are new to fantasy and want to do it for
Right.
practice. It's like you only play 16 weeks a year, so if you're like making bad start sit decisions, you're still learning the nuances of it. It makes sense to
True.
get the reps in if you're not sick of it. For people like us that have a bunch of leagues, once you're out, you're kind of out, and it is what it is. It's something you can't really do a whole lot about. You
Yeah.
really
No,
can't.
it's
Once
fun.
you're out, you're out. Unless you're a dickhead commissioner or whine about something like, unless somebody
Yeah.
dies on the field, there's not really a chance that you can,
Hey,
just
it
split
almost
the pot.
happened.
That was a wild year. Hopefully that'll never happen again. A week,
Well,
you know.
it was crazy because my situation, we had a guy who was down 3 points and had Josh Allen and Jamar Chase in the semifinals. and he lost because the game I'm like, that's the only way we can do it. I felt so bad. He's like, I know you would have won, but I can't. It's the game never happened. It's so brutal.
Yeah, there was all sorts of different, I mean, solutions that different leagues had, and yours was at least in a semifinal. Most people was the final, and
Yeah.
in that situation too, it's like the most frustrating because literally any other player started and they win that game, like or even they play like especially because they had the points probably
Yeah.
to win that game, and then they called off the game, and whatever happened, they decided no
Yeah,
longer
you're right.
happened. So like that was the really
Brutal.
frustrating and difficult part for the whole thing. Is like if you just called it, it was game's over right there. Their stats count. It is what it is. I think then at least it's a fair way to play the situation because they decided.
I
And if it
agree.
was a Thursday night game and they decided it wasn't played, they could have done something where they unlock all the players and let
Right.
you put other
Was it
people in.
Monday night or
Monday, I mean, it honestly is probably the worst thing that ever happened to fantasy football as far as like number
I
of
agree.
players. Like that season
I
to the
agree.
next season was the first season that fantasy football ever went down in overall people playing. I had multiple leagues fold after that year. Like every free league folded after that year.
Yeah.
Like it
It
was
just
like it's
why do
not
you
worth
play it,
it.
right?
Yeah, it's just like no, this isn't a game for people who aren't diehard.
Yeah, that was crazy. Hopefully these final weeks, like hopefully we don't jinx it. All right. This is our last show. We talked about this. Who is your before we go, who is your MVP through 15 weeks? Who is your fantasy MVP this year and why?
For my team or just like throughout the whole
Just in general, I think we can factor in. I'll go with mine. It's very some of them are very obvious, but like Saquon Barkley, I know he's cooled down the last couple of weeks, but man, does changing teams make your life so much better? He had that unbelievable run, obviously, toward the end of the season. I just think someone like him proves, and like the Josh Jacobs and the Derrick Henrys, they prove that you need running backs. You need a solid star back there. And Saquon completely is the reason why the Eagles are where they're at, too, in my opinion. Jalen Hurts is a decent quarterback, but Saquon takes that next level. He's the number 3 top scorer or top 5 scorer in all the plays, like a default league with 4-point touchdowns for quarterbacks. That's insane. That usually never happens that a running back's up there so high. So that's mine. I think it's been impressive to watch.
Yeah, no, I definitely that was the first name that came to mind for me. I've got him in one league, got him with the 10th overall
Yeah.
pick. So, that's at
Yeah,
least
and the
good
value too.
value there, as well as Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs also been monsters going to a new
Yeah.
team, getting tons of carries. They could easily be the back that carries you through in these next couple weeks, wins people championships. Hard to know between those guys. But another guy that could be in there as well for running backs, Chase Brown, is a guy
Oh
that you
yeah.
got way later. It was like, is it going to be him or Zach Moss? They were splitting carries. Moss was just eating into his value. And we
Right.
finally hear he's going to IR for the season. And since then, Chase Brown has been really, really
Okay.
good. But the scary thing about Chase Brown is he hasn't hit his ceiling yet. He hasn't broke off a big run like we've seen Saquon Barkley, like
Sure.
those games where Saquon goes over 200 because he breaks off 260-yard runs. Chase, it looks like he's a year away from figuring out how to do it, but he's like one tackle away from breaking just huge runs every game. I mean, it's like two or three where he gains like four
Yeah.
or 5 yards, but if one guy didn't hit his ankle, he would have been house. So whether it's balance
Right.
drills, different things that he works on in the offseason, he's that close. And if somebody doesn't touch him on one of those next 2 weeks, I mean, you could see him explode for over a buck 50 rushing, over 200
Yeah.
rushing, and receiving. I mean, the same thing. He could take a pass 80 yards, 60 yards to
Yeah.
the house, too. So, I mean, I think he's easily an RB1 for the rest of the season and probably going into next season as well.
Yeah. I just think the opportunities are grow, right? They have their guy now. They don't Joe Burrow needs that help in the running game, and Chase Brown's finally giving it. And to your point, you're getting opportunities on the ground and in the air. So yeah, he's been unbelievable. He's the type of player that you like you were hoping Jonathan Brooks would be like this, but it's Chase Brown that ended up being like the late season wait, and you'll be rewarded type of player, and that's been huge.
Yeah, I mean, some teams even got him off waiver. He was dropped
Yeah,
first few weeks. He had kind of some rough go, and some people are impatient with those kind of players, or just
yeah.
kind of took him just because he was ranked there. And man, you pick up him off waivers, it's be hard for you to not still be in the playoffs right now.
All right, we talked about MVP. I want to give you my
Bust
worst,
of the year.
yeah, bust of the year. I was in between Marvin Harrison Jr. and Travis Etienne, but I gotta just go with Travis Etienne. I mean, who would have thought someone who'd been a top 4 round pick and then second and first round pick drop off like this? We've never. I don't think I've ever seen something so drastically so early in someone's career. Usually, it's like yes, he had some injuries here and there, but when he was on the field, it was like that different guy. He just wasn't doing what he was doing before. The draft, you draft him so high up in the first and second round, like that is just brutal value, and I can't imagine trying to climb out of that hole, especially if like you're in dynasty. Like, what do you do with a guy like that? Oh, it's this guy was like what in his mid 20s, and you're kind of screwed now. And in redraft leagues, at least you can watch it, but that's hard. You need your number one running back, and if that's the guy you chose and you didn't go RB running back, your season's essentially dead in the water.
Yeah, or you had hit on some guys later.
Yeah,
ETN was
Tank
definitely
Bigsby.
hard to overcome, especially because it didn't just turn into Tank Bigsby taking over the
Right.
role and working as like a solid RB2 or flex back. They kept working both of them in to no avail for either player here down the stretch. And ETN just last year, it looked like he took a step forward and was a different player, was going to be productive, but I
Agreed.
was never a
Yeah.
huge fan of the talent. And the problem is he's got to have holes or he's not churning out big yards. And if he gets hit in the backfield, he's not breaking that. So
Sure.
those two things combined, as well as him not getting the ball in the passing game in open space, just pretty much clogged his value from the beginning. It's made it real tough for him. I'm
Agreed.
going to go with a quarterback that was just expected to, at least run you into QB 8, top 10, no problem. Anthony
All
Richardson
right.
looked like as long as this guy's
Yeah.
healthy, there's no way he can be a miss. And then he comes out and the team didn't show proper support, putting him on the
Yeah.
bench. Didn't do a good job coaching him up in the offseason, hasn't adjusted to his playing
Right.
style. You got receivers that you signed Michael Pittman to a long-term extension, even though uh, he's a possession receiver, doesn't fit in
Right.
with what you need with Anthony Richardson. Like he needs a true number one that gets open down the field because that's where he likes to throw the ball. I
Right.
mean, I could see him fitting in great in like Minnesota's offense. Like all
Yeah.
of a sudden he's there just chucking those deep lasers to Jefferson and Addison. Like,
Yeah.
that might work, but what he's being asked to do, it's just a bad fit in Indy, and it just ended up being a disaster. People ended up dropping him. You just haven't been able to count on him, even with his legs. He just hasn't produced as a runner efficiently, and just passing has been just a disaster.
That offense is just a mess too. Like we talk about these players, they are talented, but also you got to think about the team that they're connected with. That that reverse play was terrible. It was exactly how the Colts season was going. Jonathan Taylor drops it off, drops the ball at the neck like 0.1 yard line. It just that offense needs to get it together. I mean, that Colts franchise is a little bit broken, I would say, since Peyton Manning has left, Andrew Luck has left. Those like even Andrew Luck couldn't even stay healthy because they were never building a line for him. So best of luck to
Bad
Anthony Richardson,
ownership.
but
Bad ownership doesn't change. Bad
yep,
ownership stays the same. It's Ursay
yep,
family's been in control of that team for decades now.
yeah,
There's a reason John Elway refused to play there, and if Peyton Manning and Luck had done the same, it'd be a very different NFL history.
100%. Yeah. So it is tough to like you. It's hard to predict like the Jags. Like we thought the Colts weren't going to be great, but Anthony Richardson would have some opportunities. we didn't think the Jags would be start off 0-5, and Trevor Lawrence is erratic. So it's hard to tell, but that's fantasy. Like you have to really take into account. Sometimes that's why it's best to pick the safe player, and
And
so hopefully
their
some people learn some
schedule's
lessons.
changing. Their schedule's changing by which conference they play year in and year
Yeah,
out really makes a difference. And you look at some of these conferences, the AFC South, it's a garbage conference. The NFC South, that's a garbage conference. So it's like when those teams play other garbage conferences,
right.
then NFC East, it's like they all of a sudden look much better. But when they have to play the NFC North or the AFC East, or North for that matter, it's like all of a sudden that adds 3 losses to what might have been 3 wins, and
For
they
sure.
get embarrassed in it, and morale, team chemistry, all of it takes a beating when you just are getting thumped game in and game out.
100%. Well, this is our last show. I don't know what else to fucking talk about now. I think that's pretty much. Good luck to everyone in fantasy. But what the fuck's gonna happen with us? Should we do? You know what? They fucking cancel us. We should just do our own thing in the off season.
Do our own show. I mean, we might as well. Yeah, it doesn't sound like they're bringing us
Agree.
back for another season. Like they always say, we're gonna go live at some point afterwards. They make us get here early,
Yeah.
stay late. Never
Never.
happened. Never.
Yeah.
No, like nothing. No breaking news.
Yeah.
I mean, I
But
guess we
fuck,
might
it's
need
always
like a Damar Hamlin situation to actually go on,
yeah.
but
It's crazy. Even like no one cares about football. Look at that. My stadium's empty and the game's kicking off in any minute now.
right,
What
get
is
in
this?
there.
What is this fucking? Am I even here?
Maybe you're on
I
a
don't even
time
hear
lapse.
anything.
Maybe it's like the background's on a time loop.
Yeah.
Something,
Am I
something
stuck in
fishy.
here? Am I the AI? No, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the fuck they want us to do. We've been trying to do this all year, and it feels like we're gonna get canceled. I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, they're not putting us on. I said we just leave our cameras going and just peace out. Like
All right,
they'll
I'm
they'll
in.
call us. They'll call us if they need something.
All right, I'm down for that. Watch, there no one's gonna call us. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Jeff, see
Take
you next
care.
time.
Time to get baked like a cake.